My name is Raina Mercer, and I'm 29 years old. I plan other people's happiest days for a living corporate galas, fundraisers, weddings that smell of roses and champagne. People say I have a calm energy, the kind that keeps chaos in check. Maybe that's true. Until that afternoon, I thought calm was my greatest strength. My phone buzzed in the middle of a deadline, another vendor confirmation. I assumed. The spreadsheet on my screen blurred as I reached for the device, already rehearsing what to say to the florist. But when I glanced down, it wasn't work. It was my brother. You don't deserve to come to my engagement party. At first, I thought it was a joke. Dylan always teased, but never like this. I reread the words, waiting for a laughing emoji that didn't come. My throat tightened. For 3 months, I'd poured myself into that event, negotiating with the rooftop hotel downtown, sketching table arrangements, wiring deposits from my own account. I knew the lighting plan better than my own apartment layout. All for him. All for family. The cursor on my laptop blinked, an impatient metronome counting down to a reaction. I could have called, demanded an explanation, but something inside me shifted instead. The shock burned clean. I placed the phone face down on my desk, straightened the papers in front of me, and exhaled through my teeth until the sting dulled to a steady hum. I opened a new browser tab and typed "Flights to Honolulu." The office light caught the rim of my coffee mug as the search results loaded rows of departures, bright and certain. For the first time in weeks, my heartbeat slowed. Somewhere far beyond Nashville's noise, the ocean was waiting. The morning after Dylan's text, I walked into the downtown hotel where his engagement party was supposed to take place. The elevator chimed, spilling me into the rooftop lobby I'd chosen weeks ago for its open skyline view and warm gold light at sunset. My clipboard felt heavier than usual. Maybe because I already knew I wouldn't be standing here when the lights finally came on. Carlos Ortiz, the venue manager, spotted me first. "You've got an eye, Raina," he said, gesturing toward the terrace. "This space is going to photograph like a dream." His words should have pleased me. Instead, they landed flat, like compliments meant for someone else. Downstairs, Teresa Morgan was unpacking samples from her catering truck mini biscuits filled with bourbon-glazed chicken. She grinned when I tasted one. "You're spoiling your brother," she teased. "This kind of spread, it's practically a wedding." I smiled, though my stomach twisted. She didn't know I'd already covered her deposit and half the floral invoice because Mom said Dylan was tight on cash. Brian Walsh, the designer, joined later with sketches of rustic tables lined with mason jars and fairy lights. "This blend of country charm and city polish, it's so you," he said. I nodded, but the irony stung. Nothing here was mine to keep. Every favor I'd called in, every late night sanding down imperfections, had been love disguised as labor. I told myself I was helping because that's what good daughters do. Mom always said, "You've got the knack. Honey, use it for family before strangers." As if my work only mattered when it was free. Carlos asked if I'd be attending the event. I looked out across the terrace where the city stretched wide and bright, pretending I hadn't already booked a flight out. "We'll see," I said, my voice steady. Then I tucked the clipboard under my arm and left before the breeze could turn cold. By evening, the city had folded itself into gold and gray. I sat on my apartment balcony, the clipboard still on my lap, phone in hand. I'd rewritten my message to Mom 3 times before finally pressing call. She answered on the second ring, her voice smooth and unhurried, like nothing could ever really be wrong. "Hi, sweetheart. Everything okay?" I told her about Dylan's text, how sudden it was, how cruel. For a moment, there was silence on the other end, and I thought she might surprise me, might finally take my side. But then she sighed softly. "It's his big day, honey. He's under stress. Don't make it about you." The words landed like a door closing. I felt my mouth open, then shut again. I could almost see her in her kitchen, smoothing out her apron, ready to move on to safer topics. "Mom, I planned everything," I said quietly. "I've been up nights making sure that party even exists." "I know you have," she said, "and that's why it's going to be wonderful. You should be proud of that. Proud." The word burned. I ended the call before my voice could splinter. Hours later, Dad called. He never started with small talk. "Raina, I just got off the phone with your brother. They're trying to finalize the honeymoon fund. We thought you might pitch in, say, $3,000. I laughed, a sound sharper than I meant. "Dad, I've already covered deposits, catering, flowers." He cut me off. "That's different. This is a gift. Family helps family." I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Family helps family. As long as help meant silence. As long as love looked like a transaction. "I can't," I said simply. He exhaled heavily. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." Maybe I was. Maybe for once. That was the point. When the call ended, I sat there, phone cooling in my hand, pulse still steady. The skyline glowed faintly through my window, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty for saying no. That night, sleep refused to come. The city outside my window hummed faintly, and the glow from my phone painted the ceiling in a soft blue haze. I told myself I'd just check emails, maybe finalize a client proposal. Instead, my thumb opened Instagram before I could stop it. The first post on my feed stopped me cold. My cousin Vanessa, always the family socialite, had tagged half of Nashville at what she called the pre-party for the perfect couple. There they were, Dylan and Emily, standing in front of a neon sign that read, "Forever starts here," laughing like they had never broken a single heart. My floral arch glowed behind them, already installed for the main event, though no one had mentioned the setup to me. I scrolled through the carousel champagne flutes clinking, candles I'd handpicked weeks ago, a shot of the terrace I'd begged Carlos to reserve. The caption was a punch dressed as a compliment, couldn't have done it without the dream team below. She tagged everyone Emily's bridesmaids, a photographer, even the DJ. My name wasn't there. I stared at the screen until the lights blurred. My chest felt heavy, not angry, just hollow. I typed a comment, something short, a reminder that I existed, but before I could hit post, I deleted it. They didn't forget me, they'd erased me. There's a difference. The feed kept rolling, one photo after another, faces I'd grown up with pretending I was invisible. Somewhere between the laughter and the filters, I realized the party wasn't just happening without me, it was built on me. I set the phone down and looked around my apartment. Color swatches covered the coffee table. Invoices lay stacked in tidy piles. Proof of the work no one wanted to see. The fairy lights I'd tested for the rooftop flickered in a box by the wall, waiting to be returned. A breeze slipped through the half-open window, carrying the faint smell of rain. I pulled the blanket over my legs and sat in the quiet, letting the hurt settle into something solid, something I could finally set down. By Friday morning, the exhaustion felt physical. My body moved through its routines, coffee, shower, planner open on the desk, but my mind was a loop of images. Dylan's text, Mom's voice, the glowing smiles from Vanessa's post. Every thought ended in the same place, a quiet ache behind my ribs. Tracy Fisher met me at a corner cafe on Music Row, the kind with chipped mugs and a jazz playlist that always played one beat too slow. She was the only person I could talk to without pretending. A freelance journalist, she had that kind of gaze that could slice through excuses and land straight on truth. "Tell me everything," she said, settling in with her latte. I did. I told her about the text, the call with Mom, Dad's request for money, the party that had erased me. By the time I finished, the coffee had gone cold, and Tracy was quiet in that way she got when her brain was connecting dots. Finally, She leaned in. You realize every contract is under your name. Right. I frowned. What do you mean the venue, catering, decor, all of it? You're the legal contact. If they want this party to happen, they need you. The words hit like a bell. I'd been so busy trying to stay useful that I hadn't noticed the obvious. My signature was on everything. My name, not theirs. For a moment, I felt a flicker of guilt. Then I remembered how they'd excluded me without hesitation. Guilt didn't belong here anymore. Back at my apartment, I opened my laptop and began typing. The emails were short, professional, and calm notice of withdrawal due to personal reasons. Effective immediately. I included Dylan's contact for follow-up. No bitterness, no explanations, just closure. Carlos replied within minutes. Are you sure you've held this whole thing together? Teresa called next, her voice tight with worry. He doesn't know half of what you handled. Raina. I know, I said softly. That's not my problem anymore. By sunset, the last email was sent. The contracts, the lists, the pressure all shifted back where they belonged. I opened a new tab, typed flights to Honolulu, and this time, I didn't hesitate. The ticket confirmation arrived before midnight. For the first time in months, my inbox looked clean. The morning of the party dawned pale and windless. Nashville was still half asleep when I rolled my suitcase through the quiet terminal, the wheels whispering against tile. My flight to Honolulu blinked on the departure board. Gate C12. I ordered coffee and sat by the window, watching the first streaks of sunlight spill across the tarmac. My phone buzzed twice in my bag, but I didn't check it. I already knew who it was. At that exact moment, a few miles across town, Carlos Ortiz stood on the rooftop of the downtown hotel, staring at a half-finished setup. The floral arches hadn't arrived. The centerpieces were missing half their candles. Dylan was pacing, phone pressed to his ear, his tie already askew. She's not answering. He said to no one in particular. Emily Vaughn appeared in a white satin dress that caught the early light and nothing else. How can she just vanish? She hissed. You said you could handle it. I am handling it, he snapped, but the waitstaff were still unpacking boxes that didn't match the order. The barbecue sliders. Teresa Morgan was supposed to deliver were replaced by cold sandwiches from a last-minute substitute. Someone had confused the catering dates. Guests began arriving early, trickling onto the terrace with polite smiles that tightened the moment they saw the mess. The lighting crew was still adjusting cables. One side of the rooftop glowed warm gold. The other sat dim, shadows swallowing half the skyline. Carlos texted me a string of messages. We're missing the decor order. Dylan looks lost. Are you sure you're out? But I kept my phone face down on the table beside my boarding pass. Across from me, a child pressed his nose against the window, pointing as the first plane rose into the pink morning. I smiled faintly. My cup was warm between my palms. The bitterness of the coffee grounding. Real. As the boarding call echoed through the gate, my phone vibrated again, a flood of incoming calls lighting the screen. I turned it over once, just to see the name's mom, Dylan, Carlos, and then pressed the side button until everything went still. When the plane lifted into the clouds, Nashville shrank to a shimmer of light below, and for the first time in years, the silence felt earned. When the plane doors opened, warm air drifted in, carrying salt, hibiscus, and something that smelled faintly like promise. Oahu unfolded beneath a watercolor sky, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe all the way down to my ribs. The taxi wound along the shoreline toward Waikup, the ocean flashing silver beside the road. I lowered the window and let the wind undo the tightness in my chest. At the hotel, a small family-run place tucked behind palms, the manager handed me a lei made of plumeria and smiled. You're here for peace. Yes, she said in a lilting accent. I almost laughed. Something like that. Later that afternoon, I sat on the beach with my journal open, the paper speckled by sea spray. I wrote about the noise I'd left behind: texts, favors, guilt, and how it had taken a single act of walking away to quiet all of it. The tide pulled against my ankles, steady and unhurried. No deadlines, no expectations, just breath. The next morning, I joined a meditation class at a small Buddhist temple hidden in a valley of rain-heavy ferns. The teacher, a woman named Leilani, spoke softly as bells chimed in the distance. "You can't rebuild while holding rubble," she said. "Let the old weight fall." Her words settled in me like sand finding its place after a wave. I realized how much of my life had been an apology for existing too loudly, caring too much, working too hard. For once. I let the silence stand without trying to fill it. That evening, rain came sudden and heavy. I found the hotel staff scrambling to move tables for a small beach wedding. Without thinking, I stepped in rearranging lanterns, stringing lights under an awning, calming a trembling bride. Within minutes, the storm softened into laughter. The ceremony continued under the shelter I'd improvised, warm and alive. When it ended, the manager touched my arm. "You do this beautifully," she said. "I guess it's just what I do," I replied, smiling not out of duty this time, but something closer to grace. On my third morning in Oahu, the sound of waves woke me before sunrise. I made coffee in the small kitchenette and carried it out to the balcony, the ocean already turning gold. My phone, which I'd kept silenced for days, blinked with a single message from Tracy. "Check this out." Below was a link to her latest article, "The Invisible Labor of Family." My stomach tightened as I read the opening lines. She hadn't used names, but I recognized every beat: months of planning, the erasure, the quiet exit. It was my story told with a clarity I hadn't been able to give it myself. The piece spread faster than either of us expected. By afternoon, it was everywhere, shared on women's forums, reposted on news pages. The comments poured in stories of sisters, daughters, aunts who had given too much and been thanked too little. Some wrote that they'd quit similar obligations after reading it. Others simply said, "I see myself in her." For the first time, I didn't feel alone in the exhaustion that had followed me for years. It was strange, being known through something I'd spent my whole life hiding. Strange and freeing. Emails followed from people I actually knew: Carlos, Teresa, even Brian. Each one kind, each one beginning with some version of, "I had no idea what you were going through." They thanked me for my professionalism, said the event world needed more people who set boundaries. 2 local companies reached out, asking if I'd consult for their spring launches. Between the notifications, my phone started buzzing with other names: Mom, Dad, Dylan. The missed calls stacked one after another until I flipped the device face down again. The ocean kept its rhythm beyond the railing, steady and disinterested in who wanted what from me. I sipped my coffee, feeling the weight of it all: exposure, relief, and something new underneath. A quiet certainty that the story I'd once built for others finally belonged to me. I was walking back from the beach market when my phone rang. Tracy's name flashed across the screen, her timing as precise as ever. I answered, expecting another update about the article. Instead, her voice came low, almost careful. "Raina, you might want to sit down," she said. "The engagement's off." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard her. Then, she filled in the details. The rooftop party had turned into a disaster, guests posting videos of the mismatched decor, jokes about the half-lit skyline theme. Someone on Twitter called it a masterclass in chaos. Dylan and Emily had argued loudly by the bar, their fight caught in the background of half a dozen clips. By morning, sponsors had pulled out of the honeymoon campaign they'd been building online. I leaned against the railing, watching the waves slip against the shore. There was no satisfaction in hearing it, just a quiet stillness that felt like truth finally balancing itself. After we hung up, I checked my voicemail for the first time in days. Mom's voice trembled through the speaker. "Honey, It all fell apart. Dylan's heartbroken. Please, call me back. We can fix this. Another message followed Dad, stern as ever. You've made your point. Now do the right thing and help clean up this mess. I listened to them both, the words washing over me without finding a place to land. Then I pressed delete. The room was filled with the soft rustle of pages as I opened my journal. I wrote slowly, letting the pen move without thought until the sentence formed on its own. They built the stage. I stopped dancing. The ink bled slightly into the paper, a small blur that felt almost beautiful. I closed the notebook, set it beside the open window, and let the island wind carry the rest away. 2 weeks later, Nashville felt both familiar and new. The air had that early spring brightness that makes the river shine silver, and the city moved at its usual hum, busy but indifferent. I rolled my suitcase through my apartment door, the faint scent of sea salt still clinging to my clothes. Tracy's article had done more than I could have imagined. My inbox was full again, but this time with opportunity, not obligation. A regional music festival wanted me to design their summer gala. A nonprofit reached out about mentoring young women entering the events field. For once, my name wasn't buried under someone else's celebration. It stood on its own. That afternoon, I walked to a riverside cafe where I used to spend long nights piecing together color boards and playlists for Dylan's party. The same table by the window was open, overlooking the slow, brown water of the Cumberland. I ordered coffee and unfolded a fresh notebook. Across the top of the first page, I wrote Mercer and Muse Events. The name looked right-rooted in me, not borrowed from anyone else. I began sketching layouts for a spring rooftop dinner, the kind I would design exactly the way I wanted: warm light, simple elegance, no one demanding more than they gave. Halfway through the second page, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I watched it vibrate once, twice, then go still. Whoever it was, they could wait. Outside, a small boat drifted down the river, its wake scattering sunlight into fragments. I closed my notebook, wrapped my hands around the coffee cup, and let myself smile. They said I didn't deserve to be there. Turns out, I was never meant to fit in their celebration. I was meant to build my own.